Welcome to Read Between the Lines, a book podcast. I am your host, Molly Southgate, and today I'm interviewing
Sariah Wilson.
Hi there. How are you today?
I am so good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, can you tell me about your books?
I write sweet romantic comedies, and I think they're fun and flirty, and I hope just kind of a break from real life, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. It's just, I like to write things that are escapist, that are just get in and you get to have fun. And so the problems aren't very serious. It's just kind of light and frothy.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about your newest book, The Seat Filler?
The Seat Filler, that is coming out in April. I'm really excited about it. It's about a girl who works as a seat filler at an award show and gets to sit next to her favorite celebrity, and she's kind of overwhelmed by it and can't really talk. And then, she thinks he's kind of arrogant about it. And so she tells him she doesn't even know who he is. And things kind of take off from there.
Yeah, and I've been reading that one, and it is so great. Definitely very escapist too. It's been a nice distraction these last few days. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that book is based off of an encounter you had with Adam Driver.
It is. This is kind of an embarrassing story because I look so stupid in it. But so I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I went and saw the last Star Wars, and I was very disappointed in the ending. And I was like, is there an alternate ending? I need to know this, but there's no one to ask online. Nobody knows that. So this charity auction came up. Adam Driver was doing it for his charity, Arts in the Armed Forces. And you could meet him at the SAG Awards. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go meet Adam Driver, and I'm going to ask him about this last Star Wars movie. So I went with my daughter. She was 12 at the time. And it was just, you see out of these bleachers, above the red carpet. So you're not really like there's a divider there between you and the celebrity. And I was getting to meet all these childhood heroes and just huge celebrities. Helena Bonham Carter came over and asked how to spell my name when she read an autograph for me. Carrie Elwes walked by and I'm like, he signed an autograph for us. Christian Bale came over and signed an autograph for my daughter. It was just amazing. And so then it was time for Adam Driver to come over. And I had been talking to celebrities all night, good luck. It's so great to meet you. He comes over, and I know he has social awkwardness. I read this online, and he doesn't like these events. They upset him. And so I'm thinking I have to do all the talking. He walked over, my brain turned off. I could not speak. It was humiliating. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's just this imposing big man, and he's having to make all the conversation. He's asking questions. The conversation was where are you from? He had to ask me that twice because I could not answer his question.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. And what time did you get up to be here? And then he signed autographs for us. He took a couple pictures, and then he left. And it was as he's walking away, I'm like, this is a story. This is a story. This girl who meets her favorite celebrity and can't even talk. So that was a setup for this book.
That is awesome. Oh my goodness.
I had something happen. But
I've had something happen like that at a Comic-Con. I was 7, or 8. I was older, but still. And I was there, and I met the actress that plays Clara on Doctor Who.
Okay.
And I could not speak. And the publicist was not kind. She was just come on, time to leave. And I was so just eyes wide. I was freaking out, but she was very sweet, but oh my goodness. Yeah. As I was reading your book, I was wondering, I'm like, wait, were you a seat filler? Which parts of this?
No, I wasn't. I was just in the crowd. And it's one of those things that you can't to do the Academy Awards. You have to either, your family either has to work for the accounting company or be friends with the producer or someone that runs the show. It's very hard to be a seat filler at the Academy Awards. Mm-hmm. But you can do the Golden Globes. No, those are chairs. I'm trying to think, the Emmys, I know you can do. I actually made friends with someone online who, in doing research, that she went and did it. And she sat next to John Hamm from Mad Men for the night. And he kept joking, you're my girlfriend tonight, you're my date, because the rules in the seat filler are absolutely true. You cannot talk to the celebrity unless they talk to you first. You have to be seated, when the lights are on, the cameras are going. So there's all these rules that they have. And so it was actually rules because they all signed these NDAs. They can't talk about, what happened. But yeah, it's one of those things that sounds really fun. You don't get paid. Everybody said it's one of those things you have to be there at 6 or 7 in the morning, full on formal gown, hair and makeup done. And then you are standing most of the time for like 12, 14, 16 hours. So it has to be something you really want to do. Like it's not easy. And, you might think, oh, I'm going to sit next to all these celebrities. And then, you don't get that opportunity. But one of the incidents, a couple of them in the book, I actually got from real seat fillers, like the one where she has to fall at his feet, a girl that really happened to her. And she did it next to Robin Williams. And he thought it was so funny. He kept kicking her. Like the whole show's going on. He's kicking her because he thinks it's hilarious. So, yeah.
Oh.
So fun stuff does happen like that. Or like one chick said she was sitting next to Harry Connick Jr. and he invited her to an after party. Like, let's go. Well, I'll take you to this party. And she's like, yeah, I'm in. So yeah, I mean, it's just really fun stories to hear. And I thought this would be so fun because you do have that chance. You do have that chance to meet a celebrity. And last year at the Academy Awards, Laura Dern won Best Supporting Actress. She was seated next to Adam Driver. And I'm like, Adam Driver's sitting next to the seat filler right now. Like that was the thought I had when she got up to go take her award and go backstage. Somebody had it because he's sitting right in the front. Somebody had to sit in that seat. And so it just felt very meta to me. Like I had this book and, that's kind of what happened.
And then he actually was with the
he actually had to sit next to a seat filler. And I thought that was hilarious.
I think that is so awesome. Yeah. I actually did not know that it was a job before I read the book.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get paid. It's just voluntary. You just go show up and do it all day. So
yeah, to me that sounds amazing. But when you said the like 14 hours, I was like, oh wait a minute.
Like no food. Like they don't feed you. I mean, it just doesn't sound like.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably do it if somebody said, hey, we'll let you be a seat filler. I'd be like, yep, sign me up. I'll go do it. Just for the chance to have that opportunity, just experience it once. But I don't think it would be something I'd be like, let's do this a lot. Sounds like hard work. So.
Okay, so you write romance. So how do you craft two characters knowing that they have to end up together in the end?
That is actually really difficult. And I'm finding that as I go on and the more books I write, it's actually becoming harder. Like I thought it would be easier. Like I thought you get all this experience, but it's like you don't want to repeat what you've written in earlier books. And I actually have another kind of celebrity regular girl romance called Starstruck. It's one of my best-selling books. And so as I was writing Seat Filler, I'm like, I can't go back over this ground again. I can't go over the paparazzi thing. I can't go over being jealous that he's kissing someone else in a movie. I can't go over the loss of privacy because I've already explored those things in that book. And I think it's fine when you have readers who follow you along and like, they just read your new stuff. Like they forget about the old books, like it's okay. But when you get someone who reads you and then goes and reads your entire backlist, you don't want every book to feel the same or, have that similar feeling. So I think when you're writing two characters, for me, it's kind of the idea of what do I want this to be about? Like what's maybe the meet cute or what's the setup? And then from there, it's building out these personalities that are going to mesh, but they have to have things that are, you have to have them have things that are appealing to one another. And then you have to have, I think it's a little bit harder writing female characters. I think there's less forgiveness for bad qualities. And so you have to write a character that's relatable and likable and that you root for and that you want to see.
But then there's also less forgiveness if you make her a quote unquote Mary Sue.
Right.
It's so hard to toe that line. It's
right.
like.
And it's difficult and it's hard. Like, how do I make this a character that people want to read about, but not like so perfect? And because I've read those books where like every man's in love with her and everything is wonderful. And I'm like, who lives a life like this? It's just so far out of reality for me. So yeah, it's hard, but yeah, I think it's finding those things that they're going to bond over and they're going to, maybe background similarities that they can relate, to one another over and what's going to keep them from, because I write sweet romance. So, they don't even usually kiss until like halfway through the book, if that. So it's what am I going to do? What's the problem going to be that's going to keep them apart? Because I have to do that to keep them from even kissing in the beginning. What's a wedge I can drive that's going to keep them from being together?
Yeah. So how did you choose to write romance? Like,
I love it. And I think, I was a real snob when I was like in high school, like I was in, AP and honors English and told my mom, I'm like, oh, romance is just so like, it's not classical literature. It's not, this great thing. And, but what I was finding was as I was reading stories, like my dad was super into like sci-fi and fantasy. And I would read those books and I would feel like the romance, like I was waiting for people to fall in love. Like that's the stuff that interested me. And a lot of times I think when men write it, it's not always what you're looking for. It's like all of a sudden the characters are in love. And I'm like, wait, where's all the buildup? Where's all the relationship stuff that I want to see them falling in love, not just have you tell me they're in love now, And I just realized that I was really drawn to that I was drawn to the story of how two people meet and what makes them fall in love. Why do they like each other? All those kind of, moments they share where, something's happening, there's electricity, but, nothing really goes on. I don't know. I just love it. And I found out I love it in my movies, and I was looking for it. And so I thought when I decided to write, I'm like, this is what I want to write. I want to write about, it's what I love. And it took me a long time to kind of get to that point, but I really am where I love romance, and that's what I want to write.
That is really awesome. And you're very good at it too. I was like getting butterflies while reading it. I was
that's
like,
the point.
So yeah. Could you share some tips for the audience and for myself, honestly, on writing romance?
My number one tip that I tell everybody is read, because you have to know there's kind of almost like this arrogance that exists when it comes to romance of, well, I'll just write a romance and I'll just make a lot of money. And I'm like, it's probably harder than you think. And if you're someone who doesn't read it, you don't know your audience and you don't know what they're looking for. So you have to, I think, read a lot. And then I would say if you're, just starting out, join a writers group. Romance Writers of America is a really good one that you could join and start to learn. And when I started out, I thought, I know how to write a book. I've read all these books. I can do it. And then I started reading books on writing, and I was like, oh, wait, there's stuff I don't know. And that was really helpful to me to kind of really research it and learn. But yeah, I would say you can always learn. You can always find out new things. And I think writing groups are really helpful when you're starting out, and just reading everything you can, especially if you're interested in a specific category. If you're like, I'm really drawn to historical romance, read the bestsellers in historical romance, find out why they're selling. What do people like about them?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
So do you ever hide Easter eggs in your writing?
I sometimes do. The seat filler is actually full of them. And what I think is fun is that most people don't realize that I've written it for people who are fans of Ray and Ben Solo. They're called Raylo fans, if you're not aware. But there's a lot of Easter eggs for Raylo fans in the seat filler. So they're reading it going, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff you put in. And everybody else reads it and they don't even see them. They're not even aware that they're in there, which I think is actually kind of fun. But yeah, every once in a while I'll do it. But I think the Easter eggs are almost more for people who like I have a readers group on Facebook. They'll see stuff and they're like, I just saw you wrote this. And I'm like, yeah, that was for you guys. So yeah, I do sometimes. Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm personally, I'm not a Raylo fan, but I know a lot of people who are, and I know of it. And when I was reading your book, I was like, there were certain things that I noticed that I was like, wait a minute, wait, that.
Definite Star Wars Easter eggs in there too, yeah. And my disdain for the ending of Ben Solo is very much in there, yeah.
Yes, I noticed that part too, yeah.
Yes.
I love the one part when she goes up to Noah and she's like, why did this happen?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, for me, Star Wars was supposed to be a fairy tale. That's what George Lucas has always said. This is a fairy tale. And I thought, how do fairy tales end? They end happily ever after. And when you give me two characters and you tell me they're soulmates, they're literally created to be one another. They're in an enemies to lovers romantic trope. I actually got the chance a couple of weeks ago to talk to Rian Johnson, who was the director of The Last Jedi. And he and I had an hour-long conversation. Yeah. And everything in Last Jedi was romantic. That's what all we talked about was how Raylo was romantic in every scene. And that was his intent, was for them to be romantic people falling in love. So, I thought you've done all this, you've given us all this, and then you let him die. I will never be over that. I will never be okay with it. I will always be upset. And I just think it was probably the worst way. I thought you took my original characters from the original trilogy, and they all sacrificed themselves to save him, and it was for nothing. That they all died anyway. I have very passionate feelings about this, and so we probably should go on something else. So
it is okay. It's all right. Yeah. I'm also in fandoms too, so believe me, there are things that I can go on and on for hours about.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are 3 words you would use to describe your writing?
This is such a cop out, but it's what I use as my little branding thing. It's funny, flirty, feel good romance.
It is.
Yeah. So
that's from reading the seat filler. That is very accurate. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay. So this question's a little bit more out there. So like, if you were to collaborate with someone in anything, like especially in writing, but like in any way, who would be your dream collaborator and why?
Okay. First off would be Rian Johnson. That man is just brilliant. Like, I just had such a good time talking to him. That's my dream. Make a movie with Rian Johnson or a TV show. Put that out there in the universe. But if it was just strictly authors, it would probably be Sophie Kinsella. She writes like Shopaholic series. I love her kind of just chick lit, fun, rom-com vibe. She's fantastic. I thought I would
could
love
you say her name again, please? It cut out Sophie, when you said her name.
Cut out, sorry. Sophie Kinsella. She does like the Shopaholic books. Cool. They made a movie of those. So yeah, she's really good.
That is awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So who would you say are some of your biggest inspirations? And if you would like me to make it more specific for your book, The Seat Filler, I'm assuming Adam Driver is going to be in that list.
He would, but the thing is, I don't know him at all. So it's like my made up version of Adam Driver, like Noah Douglas is a totally different person to me than him. People have said that like, oh, it's him. And I'm like, well, I know nothing about him. So not really. But I think that, and then the situation I was in, but just even for writing, I don't know. I would say I love rom-com authors, that I read them a lot. I don't know. I feel very inspired by different kinds of writing. Like, I get different things from different authors. Like, one of my favorite authors is, she's an Irish author, Maeve Binchy, and she died a few years ago. And I remember being devastated because I thought, I'm never going to get another new book from her again. And it was like and she writes so differently than me. Like, her books are almost always kind of sad and, filled with all this cool stuff that's happening in Ireland. But I love her. And like, I feel very inspired. Like, I want to go write after I read her stuff, but I don't write anything like her. Like, it's like total opposite of me. But yeah, I find there's just different, I feel like I get inspiration from everywhere, and just kind of looking for moments. And that's one of the things I think as an author, it's allowed me to start looking around, and like that moment where I humiliated myself going, oh gosh, I have to put this in a book, This is, people are going to relate. This is me. So, but yeah, finding those things in real life that kind of just drive you in that direction.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Actually, I just have one final question for you today, and that is, what do you have coming up?
Well, I've got The Seat Filler coming out in April. So that's coming out pretty soon. I guess depending on when this podcast airs, it might be after. But I have a book I'm working on edits with my publisher right now. It's called The Paid Bridesmaid. It's about a woman who hires herself out as a bridesmaid, professional bridesmaid for weddings. I've
heard of that job before. Yeah.
Like, isn't that, I saw that like in an article. I'm like, how fun would that be to write? And so I'm like, the hero is the best man, and him and the hero, or the hero and the groom, are going to start a company that's going to go public. And so they're worried about corporate espionage. So suddenly here's this woman with no social media and no background that suddenly appears in, the bride's life. And so the best man's very suspicious, but she can't let him know because she signed an NDA. And so it's just kind of this fun back and forth. And it's a destination wedding set in Hawaii, because I'd gone to Hawaii a couple years ago for the first time. And so, yeah, it's really fun. I'm excited. I love weddings and I love the romance and stuff that's in the air. So I think it'll be fun.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely going to check that one out. Yeah.
Oh, well, good.
Thank you so much for coming on. This was really great to chat with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Get some really great insight into the world of writing romance. For Read Between the Lines, my name is Molly Southgate.
And I'm Sariah Wilson.
Let's end this the way all great stories end. Happily ever after. The end.
Thank you for listening to Read Between the Lines, a book podcast. This episode is hosted by Molly Southgate. It is edited by Rob Southgate and produced by Southgate Media Group. You can get in touch with the show at readbetweenthelines@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail at 708-887-9473. That was 708-887-9473. You can also find us on Instagram at Read Between the Lines Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.